New Journal and Guide. Subscribe today.
I'm overprotective in the sense of I'm constantly reminding them that I'm there to protect them and to shield them from whatever's out there. It could be at the park. They're like, Dad, you know, we're just gonna go over here. Well, I'm gonna be right there too. Or Dad, can we go up the street? Well, you have parameters. You can only go from this part of the block to that part of the block. And then I stay out in the front and vigilant. And I know for my oldest daughter, she's 10 years old, and she's starting to get to the point where she wants to do her own thing. So she asked my wife one day, it's a little story about that in terms of protection. Could she drop her off at the corner and have her walk the rest of the way home? And my wife didn't let her walk. So one day we were coming back from the golf course, and she was like, Dad, can I walk home to think about what happened at the golf course at a time to process? So I thought about it for a second. I said, okay, I'll drop you off right here, which is about a block away from the house. And I said, go ahead, walk home and come straight home. And you know, I'm gonna let you do this. I'm gonna allow you this freedom, but you have to know that I trust you to do this, and you need to do what I asked you to do. So I just pulled up a few, spots, a few houses ahead where I could still see her, but she was walking by herself. And, when I realized she was getting to the corner, I ended up going home. So when she got back to the house, I asked her, well, how'd you feel? She was like, well, there was a weird guy out there. And I said, well, how did you feel when you were by yourself? And she was like, I was a little scared. And I said, now rewind. How do you feel when Dad is with you? And she was like nothing can happen to me. And I said, exactly the point. That's why we have these rules. That's why we have these parameters set up. So you know that if I'm with you, nothing within my power and God's grace will harm you. And I think that was just a good example for her to see what the difference was to have her dad nearby and for her dad not to be around on a minor scale. So I think she learned that lesson really early, and that was just a little walk home.
I'm gonna piggyback off what he said. I think, and I'm kind of more so the unorthodox person normally, and I agree with what he said. You can protect your daughter by your example. The person that your daughter ends up with should be comparing who they're with to you. And your shoes should not be easily filled as a father. But another way that you should be protecting your daughter is by the way she thinks. So in my household, I'm more of a go ahead and push them to be more independent, because the last thing I want them to do is use me as a crutch to make decisions, because I'm not gonna always be around. So with the short time, I don't know how long I'm gonna be here, I try to instill as much wisdom in my children so that they can make better decisions on their own, so that I use that as my form of protection through their mind, their mental state, how they respond and react to situations. I ask questions with different predicaments and see how they'll conclude how they should handle the situation. I'm always trying to stimulate my children's minds so that they can make just good decisions on their own, because again, I'm not gonna always be there. And the worst thing that I can do is say, well, I know how men are. Basically, when you say that, basically what you're saying is, I don't really trust you to make the right decision. Because in the end, I don't care how the man is, your child is the one that's gonna make the decision to do whatever it is that they're gonna do. So that's how I feel a father should protect their child.
Very narrowly defined, oftentimes it's one or two dimensional. You protect and you provide. And it's even narrower, meaning specifically protect and provide. I think that there's an issue of protection and independence. It's viewed differently. The expectation of independence and protection is different between our boys and our girls. Protection also is equivalent to safety. And when we talk about safety, there's emotional safety, psychological safety, physiological safety. I think our biggest issue, at least the challenge for the National Call Day, is to focus on the emotional safety. Because I think if we protect and improve our children's emotional safety, then we're gonna get better people working in the prisons and the jails and talking to the men and the women in the prison systems. Done extensive research and graduate study on women in prison populations. Their biggest problem when it came down to is they felt unprotected, which translated to they felt emotionally unprotected. Their expectations from the so-called men in their life left them in some way vulnerable.
This production has been brought to you by Image Entertainment.